Hello and welcome back to the When You're podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're 1 year into podcasting. Let's go, everybody. Whoop, whoop. Hip, hip, hooray. We did it 1 year, baby. It's been 1 full year since I first released this podcast. I mean, oh man, this is a nice feeling. I want to appreciate this moment. I just want to say it's crazy. 1 year of doing this. I never thought I would even make this podcast simply because there are too many podcasts out there and people need their microphones taken away from them. And me included, maybe I shouldn't even have this. I certainly don't have a lot to say, really. I mean, I don't know how much I've really contributed to the overall podcasting space, but, I just came on here to talk about random stuff and to have fun, maybe take your mind off of whatever you're going through and to just alleviate some, just have you have a good time. That's why I made this. And it's also just a nice little time capsule for myself as well. And just to listen back to, or maybe kind of have as a reference of like, I did that, I put that out there. And maybe, thinking about my first episode now is pretty embarrassing. The audio was all messed up. It's all scratchy and splotchy. I feel like I could have talked over some points a lot better. When I look at the YouTube video of it, I'm like, I cringe a little bit looking at myself in the background. I could have done it a lot better. And I feel that way with a lot of the video podcasts I did at the time. But, it's just, it's crazy to see how different things have gotten, how different things are. And man, thank you so much. So 1 year ago I had this idea to make a podcast. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but I always liked a podcast with a premise. I don't like just I didn't like podcasts that were just like a podcast to have a podcast. I like a podcast with like a little bit of a premise to it, or some sort of like a gimmick of sorts. But more often than not, some podcasts get away with it, especially with big personalities. And comedy podcasts get away with it as well because, they're comedy podcasts and the comedians are hilarious. So, they get away with talking about whatever. But for me, for somebody who's like not established, doesn't know what they're doing, hasn't even uploaded one single one, I thought if I had a gimmick, it might reel people in a little bit more. So I came up with the When You're podcast. There were a couple of other podcast ideas I came up with as well, but, maybe they'll come out another time or somebody else will have the same idea. But essentially, I came up with it because I like the idea of like all of the titles beginning the same. I like the idea of like when you're doing this or when you're doing that or when this is happening or when you're doing this thing or when you're just I like that idea of like you can just look up on your when you look up something on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or any kind of podcasting platform, you can just put like when you're, and my episode will pop up and it will be like bunches and bunches of them and different varieties as well. I just like that idea about it, and I felt like it was a nice little thing. And also if like you Google search something on your phone or whatever and you look up like when you're, I thought that like my thing would pop up, my podcast. It doesn't, but it's just, I thought it, at the time I thought it would. And when I first started, I did have a microphone, but the microphone wasn't the problem. The microphone is actually still really good. It just that the microphone at the time was wireless. So I had to connect it. And then obviously it would because it's wireless, you have to carry it away from the actual transmitter from the thing, and that's where things got a little that's where the audio kind of got all scratchy and stuff, is because where I connected the transmitter into my computer, that was the problem. It wasn't the actual microphone itself, it works just fine. It was just that where I connected it, it just wasn't working properly, and I fixed it now, and I haven't used that microphone in a while, but it definitely still works. I definitely should start using it again. But at the start, I didn't even know what to expect. I didn't even think about, especially 1 year from now, I didn't expect 100 episodes to now. I didn't expect everything to happen. But slowly over time, time passes by so fast, and each and every single episode, I feel like I'm getting better and better. I'm improving. I'm talking a lot more, and I feel like I'm effortlessly carrying the conversation a lot better by myself than I did at the beginning. Because at the beginning, I think I was just like really rambling, trying to fill up time, trying to figure out how to keep on talking. Whereas now I feel like I can kind of look at something or figure out what I want to talk about and kind of just flow and naturally just keep on coming up with words to say. And there have been a lot of changes in the podcasting since I started podcasting. I mean, for starters, what used to be called Anchor, I put this podcast up on the Anchor. They changed the whole thing now to Spotify for podcasters, so it's like a whole different thing now. So a lot of things have changed, and they're going to continue to change moving forward. It's just that it's very interesting to see the direction that podcasting is going, and you see like, dude, there are people who start like one podcast and then they get like one episode of a podcast and then they have like the biggest celebrity on there, and I'm like, what made, and then everybody's just like, they got planted there, and I'm just like, I don't know what to believe. All right, but for me, I just feel like it was so much is happening for people who are making podcasts and uploading content like that. And hold on. What I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of podcasts coming out, and I sometimes will listen to one of them from time to time. So when I say I try to find good podcasts. All right, first and foremost, I like listening to podcasts, but I also don't find a lot of good ones. Like, I've listened to a few, and immediately I'm bored. Immediately I'm like, this is not a good, like, I don't get the relationship these people have, or I don't find them funny or entertaining, and I feel like what they talk about is pretty not good, and, I feel like, and that's different for other people. People will listen to this podcast and feel the same way that I feel about them. But in the overall scope of things, I'm just saying that, like, when I look for a podcast, sometimes I'll find some good ones, sometimes I'll find some bad ones, and there are a lot more bad than there are good. So whenever I try to listen to one here or there, I try to imagine myself in their position, and 9 times out of 10, I feel like I can do it better. So that's why every single week I try to improve. I try to get better, and I don't want to stay stale. I want to stay fresh and new, and that's why I like this podcast. Is that, like, at any point it can turn. At any point you can completely change. At any point you can talk about something new. You could change the premise. You could be totally different. And I like that about this podcast, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And 2 episodes a week. I didn't even think I could do 1 episode a week, but I challenged myself. I was like, 2 episodes a week. It's totally possible. And some people do. I mean, the biggest podcaster in the world does like an episode a day, or 2 or 3. People are really pushing when it comes to this podcasting stuff. They really go for it. So 2 episodes a week is easy. 2 episodes a week is great, and I think I made the right call with that. I've also learned so much over this past year, just absorbing as much knowledge as I can about not just podcasting, but every aspect of making of making a podcast. It's the audio. The audio is so important, but sometimes you gotta ball on a budget. You can't have the greatest equipment in the world, but the greatest equipment in the world isn't necessarily always necessary. Some people just put up a podcast with their camera, and they'll just rely on that audio from their phone and from their camera. Like that's totally possible. I use my phone to record this, but I have like a professional mic. Oh, not professional mic. I have a microphone. I have an external mic, is what I'm trying to say. I have a microphone outside of my phone. But some people will just use their phone, which is totally fine, right? But there are levels to it. Is all I'm trying to say. I started doing video recordings of my podcast. I would record myself on the video, and I probably should do that again. Maybe I'll do it every now and then going forward, but more so like I stopped doing the video because I found myself distracted by the camera or trying to there was something about the camera on me and the how can I say it? I didn't feel relaxed, or I didn't feel good enough. I felt like a bit of pressure with the camera on me. And maybe I would feel differently if I had like the right equipment to like keep my camera going, because the way that my camera worked at the time was it would shut off every like 30 minutes or something like that. And that's just because of the way the camera is made. But the camera was shut off, and because the camera would shut off, I'd have to wait. Like there was a cutoff in the video, and I hated that. I didn't like that at all, and I wish that it could keep on rolling, but I didn't have the quote unquote right equipment to keep it going, and that's what I've been kind of like desperately looking for, or like wanting. So until I can get that thing, I'm probably just gonna chill off of the video for right now. But I definitely enjoy looking back at some of those old videos. I think there's so much videos of the podcast on my YouTube channel, on the When Your Podcast YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. But I like going back and looking at those beginning videos because they're pretty funny to look at now. At the start of it, old, fresh me, and looking at my newest video right now, there's no video. It's just a picture of the thumbnail. But that was just so that way I'm not self-conscious about the camera on me, and I can just talk freely. I don't have to worry about looking at the camera. I can look at my notes a lot clearer, and it's a lot better. I also learned the social media promotion definitely helps. I've been posting them on my Instagram, on my Snapchat, on Twitter. I've been posting them on Threads too, because Threads came out. Never know who might be on there. Just constant uploading and trying to reach out to as many people as possible, or try to get the same audience looking at it over and over and over again. Is important as well. And then you learn uploading. Uploading is super. It's not difficult. It's just that there are certain times where the uploading gets halted because of certain factors, or certain things happen, and it definitely takes time, and time that I don't necessarily have, but I always try to make it by the deadline. I always try to make it on time. So when I'm recording, at the beginning, I was trying to always find the right time to record, because I didn't know when to record, what to talk about, and I just felt like I was all over the place. And so what I did was I wrote on a notebook, a little notebook, and I would put a list down on there. And because I was recording myself at the time, I would put the list outside of the shot of out of the frame of the camera, and I would look at it constantly. And when I look back at those videos, you can clearly see me side-eyeing it. You can see me looking at the corner of my eye, looking at the list, trying to read it, but it's not visible to me because I write it in pencil, and I need to like maybe write it in pen so that way it could be like more legible. And the light from the camera, or the camera light was shining on my face, so I can't clearly see the whole list. But it was always a struggle for me to figure out to make the time to record, to like, this is when you have to record and you have to schedule out this amount of time. You have to make this amount of time for the podcast. So you have to schedule the time to make a list about what you want to talk about. You have to schedule the time to actually record. You have to schedule the time to edit it and then upload it and then put it on your page, and then put it on everything else, and then from there you have to figure out how you're going to post online, and yada yada yada. It's just, at the beginning it was something that weighed heavily on my mind, but now it's just like clockwork, now it's effortless for me. Now it's like I could wait till the last minute to get it done, and I know I'm going to get it done because it's just become a habit for me now. It's become routine, and it would feel a bit off if I didn't do it. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that when you do it, it becomes ingrained in you, and I like it a lot. And also, it was also me trying to be interesting at the beginning. I was trying so hard to be so fun and interesting and this thing, but that so doesn't matter. It's just about, what do you want to talk about, and talk about it. Be yourself, be calm, be chill, be exciting, be that, but don't try to be it, just do it. And if it turns out when you do it, it comes off a bit stale or not what you, if it comes out a little mediocre or a little bit like underwhelming, hey, there's always next week. There's always another chance. You can always talk about that topic again in new ways. There's always a chance to revisit this stuff. There's no ceiling to it. You can always come back to it. You can always try again. You didn't fail. There's always next time. There's always another podcast. There's always another episode. And that's how I feel sometimes listening to some of the older episodes. It's like, I didn't fail at that episode. I just, the next episode's going to be better, and the next episode, and the next episode. And there's more to talk about with that. Maybe a certain movie I talked about, or there's a certain, or TV show, or a certain topic that maybe I didn't fully express my ideas over, or I didn't say it properly, or maybe I didn't say it right, or all of this stuff. It just feels like it comes back, and it's just like, oh man, I wish I didn't talk about that, or didn't say that. But then I go like, well, you learn from it. You don't talk about that next time, or maybe you don't say that. Or what else is there? Or sometimes I listen to it and I go like, yo, I killed that. That was such a good, that was pretty interesting what I was talking about. I agree with what I said. Yeah, I agree with myself there. It's just funny stuff like that. But 1 year ago, I was talking about the sandwich. The sandwich, when you're eating the sandwich. Oh my goodness. I still think about that episode. And it's especially fun for me because I remember I was like, what am I going to talk about for my first episode? And then I had the idea of the sandwich, and I was just like, let's go for it. Let's try it. And so I feel like the sandwich has evolved since the first time I talked about it. That sandwich is so new to me now, and it has grown even more delicious that it's been a full year of it. and it's just a sandwich of appreciation, consistency, of accomplishment. It tastes good. It's great to have that sandwich. And you know, of course I'm talking about the one after you come out of the pool and you get the Doritos. You get the Doritos and you put it on the sandwich and you take that first bite. Dude, it cures cancer. That sandwich cures cancer, all right? I don't care what anybody says. That sandwich cures cancer, all right? It literally does. But that sandwich tastes better now because it's been a full year. I was talking about that sandwich and I hadn't reached the accomplishment I'm at now. And now it's so much better. It hits different now, listening to that episode, listening to that podcast, because I was talking about how it feels good to eat that sandwich after you do something, after you accomplish something, after you achieve a goal. And sometimes it's just as basic as going out to the water and swimming and working out. But now that it's been a full year of me doing this podcast, this is the sandwich and I get to enjoy it. And dude, it's great. It's the best. It's the best, dude. And I'm appreciative of myself, of the constant day-to-day effort, or the time I put in to record, to constantly try to find new topics to talk about or new things to kind of discuss, and accomplishing something for a full year that I never thought I would consistently do. I never thought I would consistently release a podcast. I never thought I would consistently be uploading. I never thought I'd have a YouTube channel of my podcast. I didn't think I'd be on Apple Podcasts. I didn't think I'd be on Spotify. I didn't think I'd be on Google Podcasts. I didn't think I'd be in a lot of different places. And now I have a great appreciation. I have a great sense of pride that I have like a bit of establishment of like, I've been doing this for a year and I can still get better and I still want to get better and I still want to continue this. So it feels great. And moving forward in this next year, I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen? I mean, I definitely want to improve. I definitely want to get better. The holidays are coming up as well, so things are only going to keep on going uphill from here. Things are only going to keep on going up, up, up. It's going to be so much fun. I feel it. I feel it for this podcast, and I know it. It's just a matter of keeping it going. I definitely want to reach out to more people. I definitely want more people to listen to this podcast, please. Why do I say that like I don't, like I have, like I don't, I've been doing this for a full year now, and it just feels like the more and more I make, the more possibilities there are for people to find my podcast, for people to listen to my podcast. And that's exciting. That's cool. So I definitely want to reach out to more people. I mean, we're going to keep talking about the same old. We're going to keep talking about random stuff. We're going to be talking about when you're doing anything, when your grandma is on the couch with like headphones on or whatever. And what did I say? I think I said something about like your grandma was burning. Like your grandma said, like your grandma burst her. You're making cookies or something. No, you put cookies. Yeah. You put cookies. You put oatmeal raisin cookies in the oven, right? And then your grandma, and then they're burning, and you're not even paying attention because you're listening to this podcast. You didn't hear the alarm go off, so your grandma goes to get the cookies out of there, but she forgets to put on an oven mitt, and so she grabs it and she bursts into flames and she burns right then and there. And now your cookies are burnt, and your grandmother's in ashes now, but you don't but you don't even know that because you're listening to this podcast. That's what this podcast is all about. That's what it's been about from the very beginning, all right? And I just want to continue to have more fun, to have a lot more episodes, talk about a lot more random stuff, and just a huge thank you to anybody who has ever listened to a second of me talking. I know I have dude, when I listen to my podcast back, I hate my voice, all right? It is the most annoying voice, but I mean, what can I do? You know what I mean? It is what it is. But I want to say thank you for listening. A huge thank you to anybody who has ever listened. A huge thank you to anybody who has ever talked about my podcast, who has ever messaged me about it, who has ever, just for a second, taken the time out of their day or thought that this podcast was interesting or thought that they wanted to listen to me talk about a certain topic that they're a fan of. Thank you so much. And hopefully I kept your attention. If not, hey, I hope you find the podcast that you're looking for. And thank you so much. 1 year. It feels so good. It feels so good. I'm thankful to everybody, and I'm thankful to myself, and I'm so happy that we're going to go on another year, baby. Another year of this podcast, the When You're Podcast. When you're 1 year into podcasting, oh, yes. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. We're going for 2 years. Remember that. We're going again and again and again. We're keeping it going. We're keeping the train rolling. All right? The wheels on the bus go round and round on this podcast. It's not over. And thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys all on the next one. Thank you.